Hello, welcome to Cuba. I'm Thomas, and today I'll be taking you on a fascinating journey through the vibrant Caribbean island that has captured the hearts of millions. From its rich history to its picturesque beaches, Cuba is a destination full of charm and cultural diversity. Prepare to immerse yourself in the contagious music, the delicious cuisine, and the warmth of its people. Join me as we explore every corner of this jewel of the Caribbean on our trip together through Cuba.
Hello everyone, I'm Andy, and I'm excited to join you on this trip to Cuba with Thomas. Are you ready to immerse yourself in the magic of this incredible Caribbean island? Let's start this exciting journey together.
Cuba. Cuba is located to the west of the North Atlantic, bordered by the Florida Strait and the Old Bahamas Channel to the north, the Windward Passage to the east, the Columbus Strait and the Caribbean Sea to the south, and the Yucatan Channel to the west. Capital, Havana. The official and native language is Spanish. The currency of Cuba is the Cuban peso, CUP, where one United States dollar equals midnight Cuban pesos. The majority religion is Catholicism, but Protestantism and Adventism are also practiced. Other minority groups include Jehovah's Witnesses, Methodists, and Presbyterians. Santeria, or the rule of Oca, is also widespread. Cuba experiences two distinct seasons, the dry season and the rainy season. There are no four seasons as commonly experienced in the Northern Hemisphere. The dry season runs from mid-November to April and coincides with the high tourist season. On the other hand, the rainy season starts in May and extends until November. The worst months are August and September, during which hurricanes are quite common. However, it is typical for rain to fall and then the sun to reappear. Don't expect constant rainfall.
Well, this was a great start about Cuba, don't you think? Now let's get to the news. Come on.
Current situation in Cuba. Republic with a dictatorship of the proletariat regime. The Cuban economy relies on the country's diverse natural resources, ranging from minerals like nickel and cobalt to tropical landscapes that attract millions of tourists every year. Human capital is the other fundamental pillar of the country's economy. Cubans earn an average of about $25 per month. The Caribbean island faces a multidimensional crisis, with difficulties similar to other countries of the old real socialism. A layer of unfulfilled promises, social fatigue, and bureaucratic power looms over the Cuban population. The sacrifices imposed by a revolution are part of a horizon of change in people's lives. Cuba is very safe. Cubans are charming and will make you feel at home. Moreover, this country relies on tourism. Do you think they will risk losing their main, almost only, source of income? Travel insurance is also mandatory to enter the country. The most common way to get around in Cuba is private taxis, large cars that gather groups of people sharing a route. Things to do and visit in Cuba. Havana. Visit Havana, the capital of Cuba and its soul. The city center is a small architectural gem, but also give other more distant neighborhoods a chance. You'll encounter a decadent city, but you'll fall in love with its atmosphere, colors, and people. There's no other city like it in the world. Santiago de Cuba. After Havana, Santiago de Cuba is the second largest city in the country and is well worth a visit if you have at least 3 weeks. Also, if you travel in July, you'll catch the Carnival, one of the island's biggest celebrations. What is the traditional food of Cuba? Typical Cuban dishes result from the mixture of Spanish, African, Aboriginal, Yucatecan, and even Asian traditions. Cuban chicken and rice is one of the standout traditional Cuban dishes in our gastronomic repertoire. It is a succulent, perfectly seasoned rice, accompanied by delicious chicken that is part of some of the most important Cuban celebrations.
Wow, Cuba so far looks great, don't you think? Why don't we go see its curiosities? Come on.
Curiosities about Cuba. 1. Sleeping in private homes. The most typical accommodation in Cuba is staying in private homes or Cuban houses. These are local homes that rent rooms to tourists. For a modest price, you get a room with a private bathroom and air conditioning. It is the most recommended option, especially if you want to experience Cuban culture up close. You'll find that the Cuban people are full of joy and kindness. 2. Internet. There is no free internet in Cuba. Due to government control, internet access is highly regulated. To connect, you need to go to the main squares in cities or some establishments that offer it. Wi-Fi routers are installed there, and with purchased keycards, you can access the internet. 3. Don't bring dollars. Due to the strained relationship with the United States, the dollar is penalized in Cuba. Specifically, a 10% commission will be deducted, so it is not recommended. This is one of the most beneficial curiosities about Cuba to consider before going. 4. Lack of supplies. Don't be surprised if you go to an expensive restaurant and they say they don't have several dishes you wanted. The shortage of supplies in the country even affects luxury items. So, learn to relax to the rhythm of Cuban music and order something else. You're in Cuba. 5. Cuba is an expensive country. You might think that Cuba is cheap, but forget it, it's the opposite. The fact that there is a tourist currency makes everything measured by that standard. This makes eating out or taking a taxi cost almost the same as in Spain. 6. Drones are prohibited. If you're thinking of bringing a drone to take incredible photos on deserted beaches, forget it. Unless you have a special permit to carry it, it will be confiscated. You could even have problems at customs, so I recommend you leave it behind. 7. Cubans need permits to move around the country. Cubans need to apply for special permits to travel to some areas of the country, such as the Cays, which are accessible only to tourists or employees. 8. Ration book. Cubans have a monthly ration book. Through this, they are entitled to basic foods, rice, eggs, etc., at an incredibly low price. However, according to Cubans themselves, this doesn't even last for a week. 9. Property. Cubans do not have the right to own more than one property. That is, if the house is in the wife's name, the car must be in the husband's or son's name. This is the only way a family can have more than one private possession. 10. Don't be fooled by cigars. In many cases, they will try to sell you cigars at a laughable price. You might think you're scoring a deal, but it's most likely a scam. Even in tobacco plantations, they let you taste some and then sell you others. 11. Production for the state and 10% for the individual. Any production, rum, tobacco, etc., made by an individual will not be entirely for them. In fact, the state takes 90% of all production, and they only retain 10% for their own trade/consumption.
Well, this was all about the curiosities of Cuba. Now let's go back in time and see its history. Come on!
History of Cuba. Cuba, situated in the Caribbean, has a rich history marked by the arrival of the Spanish in 1492 and the subsequent colonization. In 1898, after the Spanish-American War, the United States occupied Cuba, but it eventually gained independence in 1902. For much of the 20th century, the island was under the influence of leaders like Fulgencio Batista. In 1959, Fidel Castro led the Cuban Revolution, establishing a socialist regime. The Cold War led to tensions with the United States, evident in the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962. Cuba also actively participated in international conflicts, sending troops to Angola and supporting revolutionary movements in Latin America. Over the decades, the country faced economic and political challenges exacerbated by the U.S. embargo. Despite Fidel Castro's death in 2016, Cuba continues to be a global point of interest, with ongoing efforts for economic and political reforms in a changing context.
Well, this was all about Cuba. Now let's go to some questions to have fun. Thanks for joining us on this journey. I hope you've enjoyed the blend of history and charm. If you liked it, don't forget to hit the like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and, of course, subscribe for more adventures. See you at the next destination. Bye for now.